Hello everybody. So today we're going to talk about variables in algebra and translating written language to algebraic. So before we do that, we want to talk about some definitions. The first definition is a variable. A variable is a letter representing a value in a quantity. So most common variable we use in algebra is x. The second most common variable is y. But really, you can use any variable you want. Typically, you want to avoid variables that look like numbers, but I have seen that as well. Then we have numerical expressions, or numerical expression. A numerical expression is a mathematical expression consisting of numbers and operations. A variable expression is a mathematical expression consisting of numbers, one or more variables, and operations. So, if you look at those two definitions, numerical expressions and variable expressions are very similar. They're both mathematical expressions, and they both have numbers and operations. But a variable expression has variables in it, where a numerical expression does not. All right, so here we get to the good stuff. Really study this chart carefully and make sure you reference it as needed. So these are words that mean specific operations in mathematics, or certain things in mathematics. So we have our four basic operations right here, and then we have some additional items, which are parentheses and equal signs. So first we'll talk about the words that mean addition. So for words that mean addition, we have sum, more than, plus, decreased, added to, together. For subtraction, we have difference, between, minus, decreased by. Then we also have less than, subtracted from, and fewer than. Now, there are asterisks next to these words, and there's a very important reason why. For those asterisks, that means you have to switch the order of the two things you're subtracting. Okay? So, let's say I have a number minus 3. Well, that would just simply be, if we write in algebra, x minus 3. But let's say I take one of these key phrases. So let's say I have 6 less than x. What happens is less than, means we're taking 6 away from x, so it actually would be x minus 6. All right, so when you have less than, subtracted from, or fewer than, you have to switch the order of the two things you're subtracting, because whatever comes first is being taken away from the other item. Hopefully that makes sense. Then we have phrases that mean multiplication. Product of, times, multiplied by, increased by a factor of. Phrases that mean division. Divided by, quotient of, per, out of, ratio of, percent. Now, with division, whatever comes first has to go in your numerator. Whatever comes second has to go in your denominator. So you have to be very careful of the order with subtraction and division. With addition and multiplication, these are commutative operations. So what that means is that the order is not really important, because, for example, 3 plus 4 is the same as 4 plus 3. But with subtraction and division, the order is very important. So we talked about the order for these three phrases. If you don't have to switch them for these three phrases, then keep the order the same. But for division, whatever comes first has to go in your numerator. Whatever comes after that division word, or second after the phrase quotient, has to go in your denominator. And the last part we'll talk about another day. All right? So this is about parentheses and the equal sign, so we'll talk about that in another time. So here are some of our basic examples. Okay? A number minus 10. Well, remember, when you're doing these problems, the phrase a number, you want to use a variable to represent that. So x minus 10, and then minus means subtraction. Obviously, the number 10 is 10, so there's your answer. Number 2, the sum of 3 and a number. Well, we have the number 3. That's pretty easy. And a number. When you're doing these problems, a number will always be your variable. Okay? Now, sum of. Look back in your notes and determine what sum of what operation it is. So if you looked or you knew, that was addition. But what happens is with the sum of, the two things you're adding actually come after the phrase. So, and I'll actually talk more about that in a second. So we're actually adding 3 and x. And the word and just joins the two things you're adding. So your final answer is x plus 3 or 3 plus x. And finally, number 3, 4 minus a number. So we have a number is x. 4 minus x. Well, 4 minus means subtraction. So there's your answer. Now going back to number 2, the sum of. There are 4 phrases where the two things you're working with come after the phrase. So if I go back here, I'm going to tell you what those phrases are right now. We have the sum of, okay, the difference of, the product of, or the quotient of. If you have one of those 4 phrases, whatever you're taking the sum, difference, product, or quotient of comes after the phrase. And the word and actually joins the two things you're working with, whatever that operation is. Some people think and means addition. And is not an operational word. Okay? And joins the two things you're working with in the sum of, the difference of, the product of, or the quotient of. So that's another thing you have to get familiar with when you're doing these problems. So let's look at some more examples. So number 4, a number less than 6. Well, remember, we have 6 here. Less than was one of those phrases where a number is being taken away from 6. So we actually have to switch the order. The final answer is 6 minus x. Okay? That would also be true if this was subtracted from or fewer than. If those phrases were right there, we would also switch the order. Now, if it's not one of those 3 phrases, you keep the order the same. So, for example, if it's minus or difference of, the order would actually stay the same. But when you have less than, you switch the order, and that would be your answer. Number 5, the product of 7 and a number. So, product is multiplication. We have number 7. A number is x. Now remember, we talked about that just a minute or two ago. The phrase a product, the two things you're working with actually come after the phrase. And so you just have to know what product means. Product means multiplication. So the two things we're multiplying are 7 and x. Now in algebra, the algebraic way you write that is 7x. So when you're multiplying two things in algebra, you smudge them together. And then number 6, the quotient of a number and 11. So we have a number is x. And that's one of the key things that you're hopefully picking up from today's lesson. Anywhere you see the phrase a number, put your variable there. I also cross off the words that mean numbers and write the numbers themselves. So now I have to go back right here, the quotient of. What does that mean? It means divide. But the quotient of is one of those phrases where the two things you're dividing come after the phrase. It's actually x and 11. Remember, and's just telling you what two things you're dividing. But when you're doing division, what comes first has to go in your numerator. What comes second has to go in your denominator. So this is your final answer. If you want to write it as a vertical fraction, it would be x over 11. Okay? Some of you might have wrote it like this, which is fine. This is more the algebraic way you'll see it, though, as a fraction. But this would be fine as well. Okay? So I want you to, don't worry about those. I want you to try these 2 examples really quick. All right? Again, so go ahead and copy these 2 examples down. The directions are translate to algebra. Copy these down in your notes and try them at your seat. You're going to get the most benefit by doing these on your own first. So I'm going to leave the next 30 seconds blank. See if you could take these 2 written expressions and write them using algebra. All right, so let's go over these. So for the first one, we have 3, a number is x, and then difference of. That actually means subtraction. All right. Now, when you have the phrase a difference of, the two things you're subtracting come after the phrase, so it's 3 and x. But difference of is not one of the phrases for subtraction where you switch the order. So your final answer is 3 minus x. Okay? And number 2, 10 subtracted from a number. Well, we have the number 10. Let me clear this off a little bit. Let me use a different color maybe. There we go. So we have the number 10. A number is x. And then subtracted from, most of you know that means minus. But now you got to tie it all together. Subtracted from actually has the asterisk in your notes, or that chart. So what happens is 10 is being taken away from x. So the final answer is x minus 10. All right. So this gives you a little bit of a little bit more experience in translating written language to algebraic. You're going to get some more practice with this today. So if you have any questions, please let us know. We'll also spend another day on this tomorrow. But again, if you have any questions, please send me an email or let me know in class. But thank you very much for your attention. Make sure you have these examples copied down in your notes. And please feel free to re-reference this video lesson as needed. But have a fantastic day, everybody.